Good evening and warm welcome of everybody to a very special edition of our sector-specific webinar. I'm Shrikant Chauhan from Kotak's Equity Research Team, and joining me today is our speaker for the day, Ms. Hemali Dhame, AVP with PCG Research of Kotak Securities. She is qualified chartered accountant and has experience of 7 years in equity markets. She covers BFSI sector with us. The bank sector is the heart of the stock market and it contributes nearly 37% to the total weight of Nifty. It is more sensitive to the news flow on FPI, which we all know very well. In the last 6 months, FI sold over 1,40,000 crores in the cash segment, and despite this, the bank sector is outperforming to the Nifty, which is suggesting us that the outflow from the financial sector is lesser than other sectors. After almost a decade, after 2010, the banking sector is fully functioning on the basis of purely fundamentals. Canara Bank fell to the levels of 130 during the fall of 2008, but from there, it went to the levels of 820. SBI was around 90, from there it moved to 350. Panko Baroda, which was around 30 levels, it moved to the levels of almost 180. Axis was around 50. From there, it rallied to 320 something sort of levels. Icici Bank was little bit underperforming, but that time when the fall was there, the most impacted stock was Icici Bank, and it was down to the levels of 50. From there, it moved to the levels of 230, which is still not that bad. Hdfc was the biggest outperformer, and it was around 75 when the fall was there in the year 2008. It moved to the levels of 350 without any meaningful correction. And later on, we saw the levels of 1300 without any meaningful correction. So you can see the way the bank sector performed given the returns during that particular period between 2010 to 2008, between these 2 years. And going by the current developments and fundamentals, I'm expecting a major turnaround for this sector and will elaborate. I have Hemali Dhame with us from research team. She will explain why it is likable sector these days and why one should invest in bank stocks. Over to Hemali.
Thank you, Shrikant. Just give me a moment.
Sure.
So we will today quickly discuss why banking stocks are likable these days from a fundamental perspective. Obviously, as Shrikant mentioned, it's a stock where FPIs have invested in a very high proportion, and it is always the first sector which is impacted by foreign flows. But we are going to try to focus on how fundamentally these stocks are improving and how you could select stocks where there is least likely downside risk and or the highest margin of safety with respect to its fundamentals. In today, we will discuss around these three these parameters. As we all know that in the last 2 years, COVID impacted the sector the most, as the borrower of these sectors were the ones who were impacted, and the ability to repay loans were in question. However, the support by the Reserve Bank of India and the Government of India in schemes like ECLGS and other liquidity measures were really helpful to the sector and to its borrowers. Going ahead, what we see is what is beneficial for the sector is one, there are improving trends in its asset qualities. We, for a major part of our thesis, believe that COVID impact is behind us, especially for large banks, as we will discuss in future slides why so. We also believe that now the loan growth has bottomed out and the loan growth will start picking up. And in recent times, retail loan book has been of higher proportion for banks. Also, secured loans have been higher because of the caution that they had exercised in these recent times. NIMs are likely to remain stable, which will help its NIIs and operating performance, though there have been places where banks have been investing in technology and branch expansion, which will eat up into their cost But that's a good productive expenditure with which they are going to likely increase businesses in the medium term. The CASA franchise and CAR also is now favorable, so especially capital adequacy is favorable, especially for PSU banks after having merged, after all the combination of mergers and the required capital infusion by the government of India. And now these banks are really strong. If you see in the recent budget, there is no capital infusion required by the government in PSU banks, which generally always there is a case. And this shows that these banks are strong now and they are also tapping the public markets for the same. These are the list of banks that we like. We like State Bank of India, Bank of Baroda, Canara Bank, and in private sectors, we like ICICI and Axis. And we will also look into it why we do so. This chart shows us how asset quality is improving. And if we see the chart, these are the five banks that we like and or our focus banks. And you will start to see that from the first quarter to the third quarter, their slippages have fallen. And we expect FY24 slippages to be actually lower than what they were before the pandemic. So these trends for the banks that we have highlighted are very positive. For some banks like Bandhan Bank or RBL Bank, there is still some stress, and their slippages ratio are higher than the larger ones. The very reason for that is the customer segment or the borrower segment that they have. For example, Bandhan Bank has MFI customers which were more stressed. Ujjivan had MFI customers which were more stressed. DCB and CUBK also have a customer base which is more SME and which is more what we call the high risk borrower segment. In the light of that, we do like this sort of these banks that we've highlighted. Also, most of these slippages are retail slippages, which are more granular and easy to recover because their ticket sizes are small and they're not lumpy as corporate loans. And that is also something that has helped into recovery of these accounts and leading to lower gross NPLs. On this slide, where you see the gross NPL ratios are likely to trend lower even from levels of FY20, which is a very positive, especially for PSU banks. And PSU banks have provided for a large part of its corporate loans, and it has also written off a large part of its corporate loans. And as we discussed that the slippages, the additional incremental slippages are more retail, which are easy to recover, and not corporate loans that are very lumpy and very lumpy in recovery and slippages. We see that this has helped the asset quality to improve. As we've mentioned, we like PSU banks, we like Bank of Baroda, we like Canara Bank, we like SBI, and their gross NPLs and net NPLs are particularly very favorable. These are the numbers they've not seen in quite some time, which is very positive for their re-rating opportunity. Coming to another point with respect to restructured book, also the restructured book for the banks that we have selected is way lesser than the other mid-sized bank. So for example, restructured book for the larger banks is somewhere between 1% and 3%, whereas for banks like CUBK and DCB, it's somewhere around 6%, which is also highlighting the borrower segment and the stress in the borrower segment versus what the borrower segment is for larger banks. In similar light, restructured book for Bandhan Bank is somewhere around 10%, highlighting the same factor that we just explained. So for asset quality perspective, we like the larger banks and we like HDFC, ICICI and Axis Bank for the same. Coming to loan book, in recent times, as you must have seen, the growth in loan book was very sluggish because of the COVID and the caution that banks have exercised in terms of growth. And a higher share of now the book is retail. So if we see the chart on the right, the share of retail has been really high and the share of corporate has fallen. Since FY20, these banks have lost somewhere between 200 to 400 bips in mix in corporate loans. And the reasons, there are a few reasons that we will see in subsequent slides. And the share in retail has risen. Share in retail has also risen from secured loan book, and especially home loans, where you will obviously know that there are pretty dynamic and competitive pricing that banks have been offering at 6.65 and 6.5 to high-rated borrowers. That is the growth that has been driven by the retail loan. SME has been driven by the ECLGS scheme of the government of India, which is very positive for both the banks and the SMEs. And there, in recent times, credit cards and personal loans is what banks have been cautious about. That's also because of during the pandemic, they were very careful in not acquiring high-risk customers and also bringing down the high-risk share in their book. Now, in this slide, we will quickly discuss why corporate credit has been sluggish and weak in recent times. In the last 5 years, the share of corporate credit has been for banks, especially, has grown very, very, very typically. One of the reasons for that is corporates have been deleveraging because of a positive or healthy commodity cycle. The other reason is the chart that we see at the top, which is basically the different yields across the government 10-year yield, government 1-year yield, a triple rated bond and a double rated bond versus what MCLR of the State Bank of India is. And if we see at this time between March 19 and March 20, the entire yield trajectory in the corporate bond market was way lower than what SBI was offering. This led to disintermediation of credit, which is that especially high-rated borrowers like AAA borrowers and AA borrowers tap the bond market instead of borrowing from the banks. Obviously, banks have also participated and created a bond book for themselves. However, the corporate credit has been sluggish with respect to that. We see some respite now. However, that is still some time. However, clear advantage to banks or bank credit is still some time away. And therefore, we are expecting that corporate credit will move up very gradually. In the charts below, we see that the share of corporate credit in overall credit versus bank loans. And obviously, across, as we see, the share has been increasing. And on the chart on the right, we see the growth rates between corporate credit and overall credit to corporates. Again, we see the same trajectory in the chart below. So as we mentioned that we will see the corporate credit grow gradually from this point onwards, and we are expecting 15% growth only in FY25 and not immediately. We all know and we're aware that the government has invested or is likely to invest up to 7.5 lakh crore rupees in capex, as it has disclosed in the budget. What we will like to look forward is execution of the same and how much benefit comes to banks for the same. Coming to retail loans, we believe that retail loans is something that will grow at the rate of 15% CAGR over FY21 and 25. And we do expect banks to participate strongly in this segment. We expect larger banks to acquire market share more than smaller banks because of the benefit of cost of fund and a Casa franchise that they have, apart from distribution, that a mechanism that they have. A lot of larger banks are also investing in financial solutions, or what we call as fintechs, for better execution and distribution. And that will also help larger banks in acquiring customers and loan portfolio. This is how we expect the loan book trajectory to move from this point onwards. Again, as we mentioned, that loan book growth for the banks that we like, or the larger banks, has seen strong recovery from the third quarter itself. And we expect it to end the year strongly and also remain market leaders in the next 2 years. We expect other banks like Bandhan Bank or the other banks on a low base to grow strongly, but only next year and not this year. Therefore, we continue to like the banks that we have highlighted here in this this slide. Coming to NIMs, we expect NIMs to remain largely stable across banks. As we mentioned, there was some compression in NIMs that was seen in the last 2 years because the banks had shifted their book towards less risky assets, and the share of assets like credit card or personal loans had fallen. We're starting to see them pressing the pedal on those loans, and we're starting to see expansion in those categories as well. So that is one factor that will be a positive surprise for net interest margins, despite the fact that overall interest rates might be increasing in the system. As of now, our estimate is that there will be largely stable NIMs for banks across the board. Coming to Casa ratio and its capital adequacy ratio, as in the slide at the bottom, we see the capital adequacy ratios of all banks. And as we mentioned earlier, that now the capital adequacy ratio is quite strong for banks across board, especially PSU banks, which at one point of time didn't have a strong capital adequacy ratio, which led to them not participating in a lot of growth opportunities. Given that now they have a strong capital adequacy ratio, we see or expect them to be aggressive and also acquire market share in these sectors. On the top, we have the Casa ratio of banks, and we see that the Casa ratio of mainstream or mainline banks is way stronger than the Casa ratio of smaller banks, and which is also a positive. There have been recent regulations which also favored larger banks versus smaller banks. So we really like the strength of the Casa ratio, strength of the customer franchise for larger banks. And we do expect this to impact their NIMs or be favorable for their NIMs and pricing power. Coming to the quick picks that we have for our banks. Coming to the quick picks, this is one of our picks. We have a buy on the stock on State Bank of India, and as we see in the chart table on the right, the ROE for the bank is touching 15% in FY23, which has been an approximately 1% for ROA, which is been quite a good feat in recent times for the bank for this size to touch an ROA of 1%. Similarly, if we see the gross NPL ratio and net NPL ratios and slippages, we see these trends very, very positive. These are one of the best trends that we've seen in recent times. We therefore expect that there is an opportunity of re-rating for this stock. 15% ROE is something that ICICI and Reserve Bank, ICICI and Hdfc Bank enjoy. And if they can trade at a higher multiple, we don't have any reason to believe that a re-rating opportunity in SBI exists. SBI is our top pick at this point of time, and we have a target of 700. We see the chart at the bottom, we see the ROAs of the bank, and the ROAs of the bank that we're expecting, that is at 1%. Something when in the past, wherein like March of 2010, price to book was really way higher at approximately 2%. So this is a very good opportunity according to us. Another similar opportunity is Panko Baroda. Again, similar trends. We expect it to touch 1% ROA by FY24. And that gives us the confidence that there is also an upside or a rating upgrade for this stock as well. Similar trends in its gross NPL and net NPL ratios, and also loan growth for the same. We have a target of 125 rupees on the stock. The third stock is Canara Bank. Obviously, the ROA here is 0.5 and it's not touching the 1%. However, its valuation is way cheaper and there is a strong upside on its execution. This is a third pick in PSU banks because its asset quality metrics have been very strong, stronger than the other two PSU banks that we cover, that is Union Bank and PNB. So as far as risk reward with terms of valuation, this is a very good stock. The third is ICICI. As we see, the bank has already achieved or will already achieve a 15% ROE in FY22, and we have seen the reason. This is the reason why it's run up a lot in recent times. Its ROA is 1.8%, which is similar to the level that HDFC kind of offers. And if HDFC trades at around 3 times, and this trades lower than that, then there is absolutely no reason to believe that the differential in valuation cannot reduce. Also, the share of retail versus corporate in ICICI, which was earlier higher corporate, lower retail, is now the other way around in comparison to what HDFC was, as we have seen in one of the slides upstairs. So therefore, this is also another stock that we like as a compounder. And considering the extent to which it has run up in recent times. Axis Bank is also a similar story. We expect approximately 15% ROE for the stock. However, the ROA is 1.4. We therefore expect some valuation discount versus ICICI Bank. Nevertheless, it's also a stock that we'd like to keep on our radar. In the event execution improves and we see more upside, then there is an opportunity to re-rate for the stock. And the last one is HDFC Bank. As you would see, there has been a slight bit of compression in ROE for HDFC Bank. Also a little bit on the ROA side. The reason for that the expenses have been increasing. The bank has been undertaking significant digital and branch expansion in order to acquire new customers and increase its geographical footprint. We see effects of this to be positive for the bank in the longer term. It's over a 18 to 24 month period. But however, until that investment starts to benefit it and the operating leverage benefits come, we will see some compression in the numbers. This is a stock which will be a steady compounder in the longer term, and it should form part of your portfolio, though maybe the weights may reduce somewhat in recent times. This is a quick summary of stocks that we cover. If we see the table or the columns on the right side, this is the ROE column. And we will see that there are quite a few companies that are touching an ROE of 14 to 15%. One must also note that the leverage ratios is very different across banks. A better metric also, or a similar metric, would be the ROAs. And an ROA of 1% for PSU banks is a very healthy and a positive number, especially given the category that they are in, and especially given what their history is. And obviously, banks like HDFC and ICICI continue to have a 2% or a near 2% ROA, which is a healthy one. The numbers that we're expecting an ROE on the ROA and the ROE side are some sort of numbers which we haven't seen in recent time because of the corporate credit problem and the COVID problem. So this improvement is very healthy. In the event the corporate cycle picks up and whatever the government's investments start trickling into credit growth and the benefit of which start trickling to banks, then the delta or the upside to earnings will be significant, which makes this attractive. Now I would like to hand it over to my colleagues for their quick takes on their stocks, please.
Thank you, Hemali, for the insightful presentation. We have few stocks from other analysts. I will take you through Bata. We have a buy rating on the stock with a target price of 2380, which is at 50 times FY24 earnings. Now, Bata is a household name. या grandparents, या फिर domestic help, housewives, sports person, college students, everybody knows what Bata is. Bata का operational performance last 4-5 सालों से बहुत ही रोबस्ट रहा है और हमारा टारगेट प्राइस 2380 और बाय रेटिंग है स्टॉक पर. नाउ बाटा के पास खुद के 20 से ज्यादा ब्रांड्स है और वो ऑफर करता है ब्रांड्स अक्रॉस all types of categories, across price points and across genders. Apart from its own brands, it has tied up with many international brands, which includes brands like Dr. Scholl, Hush Puppies, Cat, Maria Claire and Disney. और वो इन सब प्रोडक्ट्स, सब इंटरनेशनल ब्रांड्स को हमारे खुद के कंट्री में कस्टमाइज करता है, मैन्युफैक्चर करता है और डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करता है, विच इज अ वेरी बिग एडवांटेज फॉर बाटा. और ये ब्रांड्स काफी कंपनी को लेवरेज, मतलब मार्केट इन कंपनी इस बाटा को एक एडिशनल एडवांटेज देता है। और आप अगर लास्ट 4-5 सालों में देखो तो बाटा ने अपने ब्रांड को अच्छी तरीके से रिनोवेट किया है, अपने स्टोर्स को कंप्लीटली मॉडर्नाइज किया है, स्टोर टाइमिंग्स को सुबह 9 से रात के 9 बजे तक कर दिया है, स्टोर इन्वेंट्री रेगुलरली अपडेट होती है। कंपनी को एक जो कस्टमर को एहसास दिलाना है कि सरप्राइजिंगली बाटा का वो कंपनी कस्टमर्स को दिलाना चाहती है, और हमको लगता है ये सारे एफर्ट्स ब्रांड को एक नए लेवल पे ले जाएगी। अब स्टोर एक्सपेंशन, टाउन एक्सपेंशन देख लो तो बाटा हैज एक्सपेंडेड टू बाय एडिशनल 70 टाउन्स इन द फर्स्ट 9 months ऑफ FY22, और आज के तारीख में उसका जो रीच है इज ऑलमोस्ट मोर देन 1500 टाउन्स, 1000 टाउन्स, और कंपनी का टारगेट है कि 1500 टाउन्स में हम लोग इसको पहुंचा जाए। अगर आप एडवर्टाइजिंग कॉस्ट को देख लो तो एडवर्टाइजिंग कॉस्ट एज अ परसेंटेज ऑफ सेल्स कंपनी का एक 1 to 2% के रेंज में था काफी सालों से। फर्स्ट टाइम बाटा का जो एडवर्टाइजिंग कॉस्ट है वो 2.5% हुआ FY20 में, और हमको ऐसा लगता है कि नेक्स्ट फ्यू इयर्स में ये 3% के आसपास रहेगा, विच विल प्रोवाइड लॉट ऑफ विजिबिलिटी टू द ब्रांड। लास्ट 2 साल में बाटा ने कार्तिक आर्यन, कृति सनन, स्मृति मंदाना और रिसेंटली दिशा पट्टानी को साइन किया है एज ब्रांड एम्बेसडर्स, और कंपनी इज बिकमिंग वेरी एग्रेसिव विद A&P which will give more visibility to the brand. In terms of अगर आप देखो बाटा का जो पैरेंटेज है, बाटा को हर एक लोग ऐसा लगता है कि बाटा इज अ लोकल कंपनी, बट बाटा इज एन इंटरनेशनल कंपनी। इट्स अ 53% सब्सिडरी ऑफ बाटा शू कंपनी विच इज बेस्ड आउट ऑफ स्विट्जरलैंड, और पेरेंट से कंपनी को बहुत सारा सपोर्ट मिलता है इन टर्म्स ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी, न्यू अराइवल्स, which we believe gives the company a very big added advantage. और हमको ऐसा लगता है कि बाटा इज अ शू कंपनी और शू इज अ डिस्क्रिशनरी स्पेंड कैटेगरी, और हमको ऐसा लगता है कि एक बार अभी कोविड ऑलरेडी काफी स्टेबल हो चुका है, कोविड सिचुएशन, और हमको ऐसा लगता है कि एक बार कोविड सिचुएशन पूरी तरीके से खत्म हो जाएगा तो बाटा का परफॉर्मेंस बहुत ज्यादा इम्प्रूव हो जाएगा। Overall, we are estimating 30% CAGR in earnings for the next 2 years, and with return on equity of about 25%. We like the stock and we have a buy rating on the stock with a target price of 2380 at 50 times FY24 earnings. That's it from my side. Over to Arun.
Thank you, Amit. Today in the auto space, we'll just briefly talk about so today in the auto space, we'll very briefly talk about Mahindra & Mahindra, where we have a buy rating and a price target of 1180 on the stock. Overall, अगर हम महिंद्रा एंड महिंद्रा को देखें तो हम 2 डिविजन्स में हम उनकी बात करेंगे। एक है फार्म इक्विपमेंट डिवीजन जिसमें कि उनका ट्रैक्टर बिजनेस आता है, एंड द अदर वन is the automotive segment where they have the utility vehicles and the light commercial vehicles and the other commercial vehicle business. अगर हम पैसेंजर व्हीकल बिजनेस उनका देखें तो इफ यू लुक एट द थर्ड क्वार्टर के जो वॉल्यूम्स थे यूवी के, वो काफी अच्छे ग्रो किए एज कम्पेयर टू थर्ड क्वार्टर ऑफ लास्ट ईयर, and this has been because of good demand for some of their products like Thar, XUV 300, Bolero, Scorpio, and also because of improving chip supplies. Now chip supplies की situation we have already seen a lot of companies are facing, so जैसे जैसे chip supply की situation improve हो रही है, production is improving for the auto companies, and that is translating into growth. The other good thing is that the company has also received a good bookings for their products, which is close to around 1,55,000 units. उसमें से 70,000 प्लस यूनिट बुकिंग इज ओनली फॉर XUV 700, जो उनका न्यू व्हीकल है, उनकी काफी बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग बुकिंग्स आई है एंड हैज रियली बीन अ गुड हिट इन द मार्केट. सो आई थिंक गोइंग अहेड द ओवरऑल ऑटो segment, and especially the UV volume should do well for Mahindra & Mahindra. Even in the LCV, light commercial vehicle segment, they are talking about, good amount of new launches over the next few years, and to strengthen their leadership position there. So there also we believe overall auto volume should do well for the company over the next couple of years. Apart from that, if you look at the farm segment, in the farm segment, company is a market leader in the domestic tractor segment. Mahindra and Mahindra के पास करीब 40% market share है in the domestic market, and उनके margins भी tractor business में काफी strong है. Recent times we have seen that the overall volumes in tractor business have been a bit on the weaker side, and that may continue maybe in the near term. But however, when we look at the medium term, we remain optimistic on the tractor segment prospects. Now, when we talk about tractor, there's another point I would like to add here is the farm implement business. Now, the industry of farm implement is not very big when we compare it with the tractor industry, but still it's a sizable industry where the company is looking to grow significantly over the coming years. Now, when we talk about farm implement जब बात करें तो we are talking about machines जो कि harvesting, cultivation या दूसरी farming activities में use होती है. So this is a growing segment, and this segment can grow at a very strong pace going ahead, and that could provide some growth in the tractor segments for the company on a sustained basis going forward. The company has also been successfully able to turn around some of the international farm and auto subsidiaries in these challenging times, which we believe is pretty impressive from the company's end. So the losses in the international farm and auto subsidiaries have reduced, and thereby it's positive from the valuation front as well for Mahindra and Mahindra. आप इनका Q3 FY22 results देखेंगे तो operationally quarter was in line. There were certain challenges from the raw material side, which a lot of other companies was also facing. But overall, I think the numbers were broadly on expected lines. Valuation, when we come to valuation of this company, gets valued, or we are valuing the company on a sum of the parts basis. Here we are valuing the auto business and the tractor business, and the subsidiaries. You're also adding value to the subsidiaries. So the cumulative valuation for this comes to 1180 for Mahindra and Mahindra. So Mahindra and Mahindra, I think even in these challenging, volatile times, the valuation, हम उसका core valuation अगर company का देखें, if just adjust करें उनकी जो listed subsidiaries में जो stake है, अगर हम उनसे adjust करें तो उनकी जो core earnings है, they are trading at around 8 times PE on their FY24 standalone EPS, so which I think is pretty attractive for Mahindra and Mahindra. And given these volatile times where we're seeing a lot of volatility in the market, I think Mahindra is a good bet where we have a decent upside and a target price of 1180. So that's one of the stock what we like in auto space. I hand over the call now to Jatin.
Thank you, Arun. Now, after auto, let's move to metals and mining. सो मेटल्स एंड माइनिंग में जो स्टॉक हमें लग रहा है अच्छा वो है जिंदाल स्टील एंड पावर, जो हम कह रहे हैं कि हमारा टारगेट प्राइस 600 रुपये, और वी आर रिकमेंडिंग एवरीवन टू बाय दिस स्टॉक एट एवरी डिप, बिकॉज हमें लग रहा है कि प्राइस एंड वॉल्यूम का जो स्ट्रॉन्ग ग्रोथ है वो जो हमने अभी रिसेंटली कॉस्ट इंक्रीज देखे हुआ है, जैसे आयरन और बोलो, कुकिंग कोल बोलो, वो सबको ऑफसेट कर देगा. तब भी जाके JSPL एक ऐसी कंपनी है जिनका मार्जिन सिक्वेंशियली Q4 में इंप्रूव होगा. कंपनी बोल रही है कि दे विल बी प्रोबब्ली एबल टू क्रॉस 20,000 टन्स ऑफ एबिटा पर टन, जो 17,400 लास्ट क्वार्टर में था. इसका मतलब यह हुआ कि द मार्जिन प्रेशर जो हम लोग बाकी सब मेटल्स कंपनी में देखेंगे वो JSPL में हमें कम दिखाई देगा. उनका ऑपरेटिंग कैश फ्लो ज्यादा रहेगा, और JSPL एक पहली कंपनी रहेगी बड़े में जो प्रोबब्ली बाय एंड ऑफ नेक्स्ट फिस्कल ईयर विल बी अ नेट कैश कंपनी फ्रॉम अ नेट डेट कंपनी. So despite of growth capex जो कंपनी capex कर रही है, we expect the deleveraging company continue to prepay their debt, because आप free cash flow yield देखते हो जो हम लोग FCF बोलते हैं, the free cash flow yields continue to be around 18% and 12% for FY22 and 23. In addition to that, the company is too confident of concluding the JPL divestment जो उन्होंने अपने promoter group कंपनी को बेची है in fourth quarter, and awaits the statutory approvals for the sale. अगर ये भी कंक्लूड हो जाता है तो करीब 7-7.5 हजार करोड़ का और कैश इनफ्लो होता है, और विच विल बी अ मच बेनिफिशियल एंड स्ट्रेंथनिंग द बैलेंस शीट. कंपनी जैसे मैंने बोला ऑन ट्रैक टू अचीव इट्स नेट डेट फ्री टारगेट इन FY23, एंड इट्स ब्राउनफील्ड एक्सपेंशन प्रोवाइड्स अ स्ट्रांग ग्रोथ विजिबिलिटी. अगर हम रिसेंटली रिजल्ट्स में देखें, रिजल्ट्स करीब सीक्वेंशियली कम था, बट आने वाले समय में रिजल्ट्स काफी हद तक इंप्रूव होंगे. उनका जो वॉल्यूम ग्रोथ आएगा, प्राइसिंग जो हमने लॉन्ग प्रोडक्ट्स में देखी है उसमें काफी हद तक हमने बढ़ोतरी देखी है एज कम्पेयर टू फ्लैट प्रोडक्ट। इसीलिए हमें लगता है कि JSPL का फोर्थ क्वार्टर का मार्जिन और एबिटा पर टन पीयर से अच्छा रहेगा। दैट्स व्हाई वी कंटिन्यू टू मेंटेन अ बुलिश स्टांस ऑन जिंदाल स्टील एंड पावर with a buy rating and a target of 600 rupees per share. JSPL is a buy. Next pick, not from a metals but from a agrochemical perspective, is Sumitomo Chemicals, where we are target price of 485. सबसे बड़ी बात जो सुमिटोमो केमिकल्स है उसकी पेरेंटेज है। जैसे हम अमित ने बाटा में बोला कि बाटा एक स्ट्रॉन्ग पेरेंटेज कंपनी है, स्ट्रॉन्ग पेरेंट सपोर्ट से आगे बढ़ रही है, वैसे ही सुमिटोमो को भी स्ट्रॉन्ग पेरेंटेज सपोर्ट से कम्पिटिटिव एज अच्छा खासा मिल रहा है एज कम्पेयर टू दी अदर्स एग्रोकेमिकल पीयर्स। उनकी प्रोडक्ट की पाइपलाइन आप देखो तो काफी हद तक बहुत अच्छी है, स्पेशली ड्रिवन बाय दी स्पेशलिटी प्रोप्राइटरी प्रोडक्ट्स विच इज अगेन ड्रिवन बाय दी ग्लोबल स्पेशलिटी। अपॉर्चुनिटी अच्छी है इन द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एज वेल एज एक्सपोर्ट में देखोगे। डोमेस्टिक डिमांड हैज रिवाइव पोस्ट मानसून एंड पॉजिटिव आउटलुक फॉर रबी सीजन will help the company to report a strong volume growth in the coming quarters. थर्ड क्वार्टर्स के नंबर्स काफी अच्छे थे। कंपनी वाज एबल टू पास ऑन द रॉ मटेरियल प्राइस हाइक ड्यू टू अ स्ट्रॉन्ग ब्रांड रिकॉल, और हमें लगता है कि आगे चलते भी ये मार्जिन्स काफी अच्छे रहेंगे और नंबर्स भी काफी अच्छे आएंगे। इसलिए हमारा जो धारणा है कि हम रेवेन्यू और नेट प्रॉफिट 14.8 और 21.3% का कागर एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे हैं करीबन 3 साल में, 21 to 24 के पीरियड में। हमारा जो EPS है जो 24 का 12 रुपया 40 पैसा है, जिसको हम 39 टाइम्स FY24 अर्निंग से मल्टीप्लाई कर रहे हैं, विच गिव्स अ मेरिट अगेंस्ट इट्स पीयर्स गिवन द स्ट्रॉन्ग product pipelines and a competitive edge because of its parentage. So Sumitomo Chemicals is a buy with a target price of 485. Now I hand over the dice to Sumit for his call on Reliance.
Thank you, Jatin. As we all know, Reliance Industries is a conglomerate. और बेस्ट पार्ट अबाउट रिलायंस मुझे क्या लगता है कि फ्रॉम जो मैनेजमेंट है, दे आर इन्वेस्टिंग इन स्पेस विच आर ग्रोइंग। जो सेक्टर्स ग्रो कर रहे हैं उसमें अपना पैसा डाल रही है, तो कैपिटल एलोकेशन इज वेरी करेक्ट। अगर कोई मैनेजमेंट ये कॉल सही ले लेती है कि कौन से सेक्टर्स ग्रो करने वाले हैं और उधर अपना पैसा डिप्लॉय कर देती है, तो डेफिनेटली ओवरऑल कंपनी विल ग्रो। तो हमको लगता है कि गोइंग फॉरवर्ड अर्निंग्स ट्रेजेक्टरी विल इंप्रूव. It will be supported by 3 main sectors, segments. But one is refining, second is telecom hike in telecom tariffs, and third is retail business growth. तो अनऑर्गेनाइज से ऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर हो रहा है और वो ग्रोथ उधर अनऑर्गेनाइज से ऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर में ग्रो जा रही है, जिसके कारण रिलायंस इज गेटिंग बेनिफिटेड. इसका फुल बेनिफिट एंजॉय करने के लिए वी शुड स्टे इन्वेस्टेड इन स्टॉक. And we are recommending buy on Reliance Industries with a target price of 2,925 rupees. आज की डेट में जो कंपनीज ने अपने आप को डाइवर्सिफाई नहीं किया फ्रॉम ऑयल एंड गैस बिजनेस से, their share price have not done well. Their investors who have invested in that, they have not got adequate returns on their investment. Why? Because of the ESG concern. Reliance ने ये चीज पहले से ही मॉनिटर कर ली थी, नोटिस कर ली थी. विजनरी मैनेजमेंट वी कैन से. इसके कारण उसने बोल दिया था कि डेटा इज द न्यू ऑयल, और वही हो रहा है. तो सेम वे गोइंग फॉरवर्ड हमको लगता है कि टेलीकॉम में जैसे टैरिफ हाइक होगा, आरपू इंक्रीज होगा कंपनी का और सब्सक्राइबर बेस बढ़ेगा, तो वॉल्यूम ग्रोथ प्लस रियलाइजेशन ग्रोथ बोथ विल कंट्रीब्यूट टू हायर अर्निंग्स ग्रोथ फॉर द कंपनी. Retail में it is capturing market big time from unorganized player with apps, with new stores and everything. So that will help Reliance to in its retail business to grow very fast. So उसके segments are growing very fast, which will increase its overall earnings. तो हमको लगता है earnings will grow by 27% in FY23 on such a huge base and 13.6% in FY24. So Reliance is a buy from our side. Long-term investors can buy this stock. Next stock which we are recommending is TCS. We are recommending with a target price of 4,060 rupees. Demand continued to remain strong, led by strong spending on cloud migration and digital transformation work undertaken by enterprises. इसके अंदर क्या हो रहा है, which we have explained earlier also, कि एंटरप्राइज मतलब जो इनके क्लाइंट्स हैं
वो सब अपना डेटा दे आर मूविंग टूवर्ड्स क्लाउड अब and digital transformation. What does it mean? It is basically their spending on IT is increasing. At the same time, it is shifting to new segment called cloud. तो वही पैसा जो IT spend करते थे वो अब cloud पे जा रहा है, which is a new technology. So TCS is a leader, Infosys is a leader, which is capturing the market and catering to its customer at a very fast pace. अब because it's a new space, नया पूरा playground मिल गया आपको खेलने के लिए. So growth will be good for almost all the companies, but leaders will grow faster. Second, जो digital transformation और cloud migration होता है, that work will not get over in 1 year. तो इसका मतलब it will spread to 2 years, 3 years. 2 or 3 years तक अगर मुझे कोई काम मिल गया हाथ में और मेरा customer is satisfied with me, तो I will keep continuously getting revenue from the same customer without spending too much on the marketing and other things. That means my margins will improve, my revenue growth will improve. So that will help the company a lot in growth. Secondly, key demand themes from the previous 2-3 quarters continued. Strong democratic growth across companies, largely broad-based growth across vertical geographies and clients. इसका क्या मतलब है? आपके वर्टिकल्स भी ग्रो कर रहे हैं, आपकी ज्योग्राफीज भी ग्रो कर रहे हैं, क्लाइंट्स भी ग्रो कर रहे हैं. मतलब दैट इटसेल्फ सेज कि कंपनी आईटी सेक्टर इज डूइंग वेरी वेल. यू हैव टू सिट ऑन द राइट हॉर्स इन दैट सेक्टर एंड देन यू कैन ग्रो. Companies believe that demand drivers are structural in nature and will persist for next 2 to 3 years. Best part about Reliance is TCS is इतनी volatility के बाद भी स्टॉक नहीं गिर रहा है because of the buyback support. So buyback is at a maximum price of 4,500 rupees. 4 crore equity shares will be bought back. So that will, according to me, in the past, stocks have done well for these large cap IT companies where buyback has been very supportive in a downfalling market. So that is why we are saying it's a good bet. Participate in the buyback and participate in the long-term growth story of the company. That's all from my side. That's all from our side. Now I hand over the question to Rini for Q&A session.
Thank you, Sumit and team, for a detailed presentation. We will now open the floor for questions. For Q&A session, I request all the participants to drop their questions in the comment section below. Now, before we begin, I would like you all to note that all our target prices are for 12-month period. Now, starting with the first question. Can you share your view on Bank Nifty? Shrikant sir, would you like to share your views, please?
Sure. In fact, Rini, the market fallen heavily in last 3 days, and in that we saw Nifty falling to the levels of 16,800, which was very close to the important average of 200-day simple moving, which always acts as very good support for the market. And this time also, when the market was down, acted as very good support, because today we saw a smart recovery after hitting those levels. But because there was like a lot of uncertainty in the market, there was hardly any rebound in yesterday's trading session. But today, as soon as the news came on the positive news came on the Russia and Ukraine side, we saw recovery in the market. If we go through with the performance of the Bank Nifty, then it was still performing, outperforming to the Nifty. When the market was down, Bank Nifty was very close to its previous low of 16,400. It was just like away by some 400 points, but Bank Nifty was away some nearly 10%. So it was very clearly indicating yesterday that the Bank Nifty was outperforming, and today when the market recovered, we saw sharp recovery in the Bank Nifty. Now, if we go through with the broader pattern, then I think I'm of the view that the Bank Nifty is finding very good support on every dip. जितना भी ये Bank Nifty में sell off आ रहा है, हमने देखा है कि वो 37,000, 36,500 के रेंज में एक अच्छा सपोर्ट लेके उसमें रिकवरी देखने मिलती है. आज भी हमने रिकवरी देखी है, साथ ही साथ शॉर्ट कवरिंग देखा है, और बैंक निफ्टी अगेन 38,500 के काफी नजदीक आ गया है. अगर जैसे अभी हमने पूरे प्रेजेंटेशन को देखा, और हमें एक बात समझ में आ रही है कि इस बार सिर्फ प्राइवेट बैंक नहीं तो पीएसयू बैंक्स भी इसमें पार्टिसिपेट करेंगे. और ये रैली में पार्टिसिपेट करेंगे। और पीएसयू बैंक जो है वो अभी भी करंट वैल्यूएशंस के बेसिस पे यानी फेयर वैल्यू के बेसिस पे अभी भी काफी अच्छे लेवल्स पे अवेलेबल है। तो अगर लॉन्ग टर्म की बात करें तो हमें लगता है कि इसमें और हमें एक अच्छा ट्रेंड देखने मिलेगा। एंड ये जितने भी पीएसयू बैंक्स है वो एक बैंक निफ्टी में कंट्रीब्यूट तो बिल्कुल करते हैं, लेकिन इतने दिनों से उनका मेजर कंट्रीब्यूशन नहीं था। तो हमें लगता है कि आने वाले दिनों में हमें एक बड़ा ट्रेंड बैंक निफ्टी में देखने मिलेगा। बाय ऑन डिप्स की स्ट्रेटेजी रखे बैंक 20 को खरीदा जा सकता है। और अगर वेरी शॉर्ट टर्म में अगर बात करें तो हमें लगता है कि बैंक निफ्टी के लिए 37,500 एक इंपॉर्टेंट सपोर्ट जैसा वर्क करेगा। एंड वेरी शॉर्टली हमें शायद वापस एक बार 39,000 के लेवल्स भी देखने मिल सकते हैं।
Sir, since you mentioned Russia-Ukraine, can you also answer our next question? Why were Indian markets worst hit in Asia amid Russia-Ukraine tensions?
Yeah, see what happens, whenever there is such type of tension, especially on the geopolitical side, we see a huge amount of volatility for safe havens. But in that, most of the time we see maximum buying interest or hedging interest in crude or crude oil, Brent crude or maybe NYMEX. And that always actually affects to the emerging markets. And yesterday also, if you notice, आपने देखा होगा कि जब क्रूड ऑयल $90 $92 के करीब ट्रेड कर रहा था, जैसे ये टेंशन बढ़ते गया हमने इस क्रूड ऑयल को $97 के करीब देखा। और ये हमेशा ही एक इमर्जिंग मार्केट्स के लिए टेंशन होता है। उसमें अगर आप देखें तो एशियन मार्केट्स के लिए अगर हम कंट्रीब्यूट करें तो उसमें इंडिया तो बिल्कुल आता ही है। और इंडिया में अगर आप देखें तो अपना इंपोर्ट बिल जो है वो काफी ऊपर है। और इसी वजह से हमने हमेशा देखा है कि अगर कोई भी जियोपॉलिटिकल टेंशन अगर आते हैं तो उसका इम्पैक्ट इमीडिएटली क्रूड पे आता है। और उसका रिवर्स इफेक्ट यानी आई एम टू से डायरेक्ट इफेक्ट इंडियन इक्विटीज पे आता है। साथ ही साथ अगर आप देखें तो डॉलर मजबूत हो जाता है, अपनी जो करेंसी होती है वो वीक होती है। तो अगर सभी जितने भी इवेंट्स ये प्ले आउट होते हैं, अगर इन सभी को अगर हम एक ऐड कर लेते हैं तो हमें लगता है कि बिल्कुल ये जो इम्पैक्ट होते हैं, ये जो पर्टिकुलर इवेंट होते हैं वो इंडियन मार्केट्स के लिए ऑलवेज एक नेगेटिव इंडिकेशंस लेके आते हैं।
Right, sir. Thank you for your insights. Moving on, we have some questions from banking space for Hemali. Hemali, I'll take some of them one by one. So first one is, can we hold IDBI Bank?
We do not currently cover IDBI Bank, so I will not be able to give an opinion on the same.
Okay. Next question is, will there be any impact of bank fraud like ABG shipyard in banking stocks? Do you still recommend banking stocks rather than NBFCs?
So two separate questions. We'll take both of them separately. As far as ABG shipyard is concerned, it squarely depends on how much that outstanding or exposure has been provided for. This company has been in the news for quite some time, and there is a possibility and likelihood that most banks have provided for this loan. In the event that is the case, then there will be no incremental credit cost for this exposure. Coming to the second question, do you still like banking stocks or NBFCs? I think both of them have to be taken on respective merits. Even in NBFCs, there are a lot of diversified or very diverse NBFCs. There are vehicle financiers, there is Bajaj Finance, which in itself is a different NBFC. There are housing finance companies, there are asset managers. So I think each has to be taken on its different merit based on, the top down and bottom up approach. So that's how we see other sectors.
Next one is, can you share your views on Bajaj Finance?
Bajaj Finance, we have a sell on the stock because we believe it's an expensive stock. We do not have constraints on its business model and the direction where the business model is being driven by the management. If we, by any chance, want to participate in a fintech play that is apparently, the go-to place, then Bajaj Finance is one of the better picks because it is a profitable franchise existingly. and it doesn't have to undertake the large cash burn that other units have to undertake. Having said that, we believe that it's an expensive stock, and anytime you see corrections, you see a very high impact of that correction on the stock. So we will be very careful on the stock. It's also a stock which is impacted by technicals a lot. So maybe Shrikant can add his view on that.
Sure. Shrikant sir, would you like to?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, the stock is forming some interesting formation. This time also, when the stock was down and the market was down, it was very close to its previous low. And when the recovery was there, we saw a quick recovery towards 71, 7200 levels. In the past also, when the market was recovering, the market was way behind to its previous high, but Bajaj Finance was very close to its previous high of 8,000. So while looking at the overall formation, one thing is very clear that there is hardly any outflow, or sellers are not that aggressive, only because it's a expensive stock. Most of the time we see correction in the market, and whenever we see correction in the market because of the liquidity crunch, because of some specific news flow from the US markets, that time we see a correction in Bajaj Finance. But otherwise अगर आप देखें तो ये जो stock है वो एक interesting formation बना रहा है. इसने recently double bottom formation किया है, और हमें लगता है कि ये stock आने वाले दिनों में based on technicals वापस एक बार 8,000 के levels को छू सकता है.
Thank you, sir. Next question is for Purvi. Please share top 3 picks from pharma sector.
Thank you. So our picks from the sector are, of course, we've been saying this in a couple of our last presentations as well. So they continue to be Cipla, Sun. And one of the new pick that I would like to highlight here again is from the hospitals space, where Apollo looks really good. Now, why we would suggest these 3 stocks is in Cipla and Sun, one of the key reasons being that they are the large caps, and they have shown the recent quarter numbers were quite strong. The commentary also happened to be very supporting, and their product portfolio over next 12 to 18 months also looks quite promising. So we feel that even though the sector is facing a couple of headwinds like raw material pricing and logistic costs, barring this, we feel that these are the companies which could deliver well. And why Apollo Hospitals? As we've seen the quarters numbers, they have, the elective surgeries or, things are coming back on track for since the economies are also opening up and we are as good as resuming to a normalcy. So hospitals में ऐसा लग रहा है कि जो भी पहले during the COVID levels जो चीजें हो रही थी, they are all now dissipating, and we are seeing the margins also improving in the upcoming quarters also. If the international travel is something for medical tourism is started again and is promoted, then I guess it's one of the best hospital to get benefited from. So these are our 3 topics.
Thank you, Purvi. We will move on to the next question. What is your view on Zee Entertainment? I bought at rupees 321. Jatin, can you take this up?
So Zee Entertainment, we have a ad rating with a fair value of 350. So we have marginally revised our fair value जो पहले 375 था उसको हमने कम करके 350 किया. Because अगर आप 3 quarters के numbers देखोगे, because advertisement revenue has continued to remain weak, और last quarter भी 3% YOY decline हुआ था due to a viewership share loss and some weakness in the ad environment. पर अगर हम आगे जाके देखते हैं कि आने वाला टाइम कैसा रहेगा जी के लिए, तो एक तो बड़ी इवेंट हो रही है जी के लिए जो नीड टू डिप्लॉय मोर कैपिटल इन द डिजिटल at the earliest, because though they have launched 25 new shows across channel to recover the viewership, however, increase in the inventory is a key things to watch out for. How the company is going to plan and successfully launch the inventory or execute all the 25 channels together. There are opportunities and challenges in the near term for the Zee. एक तो पहले तो opportunities है कि merger के बाद the company will become the India's #1 entertainment broadcast network. They'll get 28 to 30% share in TV viewership, and probably yes, they have a weak presence on the sports and the digital front. But if the company effectively deploy the capital into a digital front as early as possible, then probably we can see a re-rating in the near term as well. because of the weak earnings in the 3Q, we have revised our estimates, and as the result, we have cut our target price from 375 to 350. However, we believe that the Zee and Sony positioning in the OTT is weak, but merger provides the probability of the success, which is right to win in the digital. So definitely the आने वाले 6 से 8 महीना काफी अच्छे रहेंगे, और definitely merger होने के बाद we believe that can be a possibility case for re-rating also. But as of now, we have a target price of 350 on Zee with an ad rating.
Thanks, Jatin. Can you also answer our next question, which is share your views on metal stocks?
So metal stock, yes, we have seen the recent correction, as Srikanth has already indicated in his comments regarding the US-Russia implications, that the first thing that gets impacted if there is any global event is the metal. So we have seen that the commodity prices have corrected a bit, but yes, the impact on the domestic, on the share prices was much more higher. But however, we believe that fundamental continues to remain strong across the ferrous as well as non-ferrous. So on the ferrous, we continue to believe that aluminum will remain into a deficit, and Hindalco remains one of our top pick in the non-ferrous space. Whereas if you look onto the ferrous, we believe that every dip can give a buy opportunity in JSPL and Tata Steel, which is our preferred bet.
Thank you. Now we have some questions from tech side. Sumit sir, I'll just combine them and ask. Please share your views on tech stocks, TCS buyback, and Wipro.
So broadly, as we mentioned, we are positive on tech sector because of the strong demand, strong revenue visibility. Valuations have corrected a lot in the recent past, which makes them further more attractive. Within tech stocks, if I talk about the most promising stocks which we are recommending buy on Infosys. We like HCL Technologies, we like TCS, we like Mphasis, Tech Mahindra. So these are our top picks. You can look for these stocks. So far, Wipro is concerned, we are not very bullish on the stock, and the stock has not done well in line with our expectation. In fact, the last quarter was not very good also. So if given a choice to us, we will avoid Wipro because we have a reduced rating on the stock, and instead of that, you can look for Infosys, TCS, HCL Technologies, Mphasis, and Tech Mahindra from a longer term perspective. So far, buyback on TCS is concerned, we believe that's as I just explained in the presentation, buyback is at 4,500 rupees, ex-date will be 22nd February. Though the current market price is very attractive as compared to the buyback price. So retail investors where the 15% reservation is there, I think this makes a good case to buy stocks to participate in the buyback. Definitely, you will make some decent money considering the valuations are reasonable. Plus, there is a support from the buyback. And the good part is that 15% will make sure that you can buy, assuming that the price remains at 4,500. Then we can assume you can easily buy 44 shares for your account, for one DP account or one DP account. So that will be we remain bullish so far the support which buyback is giving to TCS.
Thank you, Sumit. Next question is on Irctc. Arun sir, can you share your views on the same?
Yeah, Renee. So see, Irctc, did see a very, very strong rally last year. The company broadly, operates in segments like internet ticketing, the catering play, the packaged drinking water, and the travel and tourism space. Now, with the economy opening up gradually, we believe the performance in terms of financial numbers, would gradually improve for Irctc going ahead. But however, in terms of valuation, we think, it's the growth, what we are talking about, as we talked about the rally we saw in Irctc last time around, it's broadly, seems to be a bit captured. maybe when the stock sort of see some connection from these levels, maybe we could have a fresh look into the stock. And another thing I'd just like to point out here for Irctc is the risk factor that we need to understand, that any change in regulatory policy by the government is also a risk that we carry on the stock. So maybe on correction we could have a fresh look, but right now seems to be factoring in the growth that we are looking at least for the next couple of years or so.
Thank you, Arun. Next question is, what is your view on Cipla after today's news? Purvi, can you answer this?
Yeah. So, as we heard that the promoters have sold some stock. So, see, one needs to understand, and when it's Cipla has been known for years for their philanthropy work, which is basically, getting the prices of medicines down so that, it's available to the common people, and affordability of the medicines is something that they focused on. So, the founder, Mr. Hamed, always had worked on this philosophy for years. And so usually what happens is when a promoter selling is seen in a negative perception, because it usually tends to indicate that there's some issue in the company. But here, I don't feel that's the case. So I would still suggest that, in fact, this recent correction gives you an additional opportunity to add the stock, as the upside is quite surprising. It's almost 25 to 28% upside from these levels. So I would suggest that there's nothing to be worried on the stock, and the fundamentals continue to remain strong.
Thank you, Purvi. Now, due to time constraint, we will have to close the floor for Q&A. Shrikant sir, would you like to give some closing comments?
Yeah, sure. Markets are, means today we saw a smart recovery in the market, and the market closed almost 500 points higher as compared to its previous close. अगर आप कल की बात करें तो कल मार्केट जो था वो 500 पॉइंट नीचे था, आज 500 पॉइंट ऊपर बंद हुआ है, and it is all happening because of the news flow which is there in the market. और अगर आप देखेंगे तो जनवरी के स्टार्टिंग से ये न्यूज फ्लो स्टार्ट हुए हैं, और मुझे लगता है ये न्यूज फ्लो और बढ़ते जाएंगे आने वाले टाइम में. अगर आप देखेंगे तो इंटरेस्ट रेट जो बढ़ के आने वाले हैं यूएस में, उसके ऊपर कुछ ना कुछ और भी टॉक चलेगा. उसके साथ साथ यूपी इलेक्शंस हैं, उसके बाद जैसे ही यूपी इलेक्शंस 20 मार्च को खत्म होंगे, उसके बाद हम वापस जो अप्रैल में वापस क्वार्टरली नंबर्स को हमें वापस फेस करना है. और उसके बाद अगर आप देखें तो जैसे ये खत्म हो जाएंगे क्वार्टरली नंबर्स, उसके बाद हम वापस मॉनसून के लिए सोचना चालू कर देंगे. तो अगर यहाँ से आने वाले 3 या 4 महीने देखेंगे तो इंडियन मार्केट्स के लिए वैसे काफी वॉलेटाइल हो सकते हैं. और हमें लगता है कि ये पूरा फेज वॉलेटाइल अगर है तो हमें इसमें जो स्ट्रैटेजी रखनी है वो यही रखनी है कि आपको अच्छे स्टॉक्स, जो भी वेरी गुड क्वालिटी कंपनीज है, उसे आप खरीदते रहिए जहाँ पे स्टोरीज है. जैसे कि आज हमने कुछ बाटा कवर किया है, या जिंदल स्टील एंड पावर कवर किया है, सुमिटोमो केमिकल है कि जहाँ पे स्ट्रॉन्ग पेरेंटेज है. अगर आप इन सब स्टोरीज को अगर आप समझते हो तो इन सब स्टोरीज में हमें नहीं लगता कि कोई इमीडिएट बड़ा डेंट आएगा बिकॉज ऑफ ऑल दिस न्यूज फ्लो विच इज देयर इन द मार्केट. और इसी वजह से हमें लगता है कि कीप एडिंग गुड कंपनीज टू योर पोर्टफोलियो. मार्केट हमें नहीं लगता कि बहुत बढ़ जाएगा या बहुत गिर जाएगा क्योंकि न्यूज फ्लो वैसे है. लेकिन यस, डेफिनेटली अगर कोई करेक्शन आता है तो हम वैसे तो काफी सारे अपडेट्स रिलीज करते रहते हैं, हमारे वेबिनार्स होते हैं, आप उसे अटेंड कीजिए. जो अच्छे स्टॉक्स होते हैं वो हम कवर करते हैं. स्पेशली आप ध्यान दीजिए कि हम कैसे कौन से स्टोरीज को कवर कर रहे हैं, और यही आपके लिए एक एडेड एडवांटेज रहेगा टू इन्वेस्ट व्हाइल देयर इज करेक्शन इन द मार्केट. तो हमें कॉन्फिडेंस चाहिए कि मैं क्यों बाय कर रहा हूँ. आज जिंदल स्टील एंड पावर को मुझे खरीदना है तो क्यों खरीदना है, और अगर मुझे बाटा खरीदना है तो क्यों खरीदना है. सो ऑल दिस थिंग्स आर वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. और जैसे हमने भी बैंक सेक्टर्स के ऊपर बात की, और वहां पे जो हिमाली ने बताया कि जो यहाँ पे हमें फोकस करना है वो ROA के ऊपर करना है. आफ्टर वेरी लॉन्ग टाइम हम वापस इसी नंबर्स के आसपास आ गए हैं, तो क्लियरली इंडिकेट करता है कि जो मार्केट का बेस है वो काफी स्ट्रांग है. मार्केट में कॉन्फिडेंस लेवल अगर आप देखें तो वो काफी कम है. फॉरेन इन्वेस्टमेंट्स की जो सेलिंग है वो कंसिस्टेंटली बनी है, बिकॉज वो बनेगी क्योंकि यहाँ से अगर जो यूएस में चल रहा है कि इंटरेस्ट रेट हाइक अगर वो 7 टाइम्स 5 टाइम्स 6 टाइम्स अगर बढ़ाते हैं तो नेचुरली उनके लिए वो एक अच्छा सेफ हेवन रहेगा. यहाँ से फंड्स जाएंगे भी, लेकिन साथ ही साथ जो डोमेस्टिक इन्वेस्टर्स है या इंस्टीट्यूशंस है, या इस बार के हमारे जो रिटेल की जो ताकत है वो इतनी स्ट्रांग है कि जैसे ही उन्हें लगता है कि मार्केट में जो टेंशन है वो कम होते जा रहा है, वैसे ही वो वापस इन्वेस्ट करने आ जाते हैं। तो ब्रॉडली हमें लगता है कि सेलिंग उतना जोर से नहीं है जितना बाइंग इंटरेस्ट भी है मार्केट में, और इसी वजह से हमें लगता है कि कीप एडिंग गुड कंपनीज टू पोर्टफोलियो। वेरी शॉर्ट टर्म में हमें लगता है कि मार्केट ने 16.8 को सपोर्ट किया है। हमने हमेशा देखा है कि नवंबर से कि 16.8 को सपोर्ट करने के बाद 16,800 से निफ्टी रिबाउंड होके 17,600 तक जाती है। इस बार भी शायद हमें लगता है कि वो लेवल्स हम देख सकते हैं, और अगर 17,600 के ऊपर अगर मार्केट बेस बनाने लगता है तो हमें लगता है कि फिर मार्केट एक अच्छे न्यू टेरिटरी में एंटर हो सकता है। लेकिन फॉर द टाइम बिंग 17.6 और 16.8 इसी ट्रेडिंग रेंज के अंदर हम शायद और थोड़ा वक्त निकाल सकते हैं। ओवर टू यू।
Thank you, Shrikant sir. So, dear viewers, hope you found our webinar insightful. And as Shrikant sir mentioned, if you want more research updates and recommendations like these, do check out Kotak Securities Telegram, Twitter, and Instagram channels if you haven't already. We regularly share market updates there. Thank you for joining us today. Have a good evening ahead. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good evening.